I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I am so honored that I get to introduce you to extraordinary women, revelatory women, women who have said yes to their passion and their power. So they're change makers. They're making a difference on this planet because they understand that they're a yes in this universe. And so I love that I get to introduce them to you. And we are on every week. So you can find us on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube and wherever you can get a podcast. Look for Women Awakening with Cynthia James, and then just subscribe and come back and see extraordinary women. Well, the woman I'm going to introduce you today is just so incredible. Her name is Sarah McLean. She's an inspiring contemporary teacher of meditation and mindfulness, and she has a unique talent for making these practices accessible to everyone. So she spent her 20s and 30s traveling the world, exploring spiritual and mystic traditions and immersing herself in the serious study of various meditation traditions. She was a resident in the Transcendental Meditation community, a traditional ashram in India, and spent 2 years in a practice at remote Zen Buddhist Monastery. She worked closely with some of today's most revered teachers. Okay, Deepak Chopra, Byron Katie, Debbie Ford, Gary Zukav. She inspires audiences everywhere to adopt meditation and mindfulness practice. She's a popular speaker in leadership conferences, workplace retreats, world-class destinations. She's been featured on national television in New York Times, Los Angeles Times, The Guardian, The Washington Post. She's a best-selling Hay House author of Soul-Centered Transform Your Life in 8 Weeks with Meditation and The Power of Attention, Awaken to Love and Its Unlimited Potential with Meditation. All right, Sarah, I am so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. I'm so happy to be here with you and meeting all your wonderful friends and fans. Thanks for having me.
Oh, listen, I love you. I love what you do. I love that our paths have crossed in so many beautiful ways. So I just want to talk how did you grow up?
I don't know. It had nothing to do with me. I grew up in a fairly wealthy middle-class family in Massachusetts in a really nice community. Everything looked good from the outside, and it was really very difficult on the inside the home, inside my body, inside relationships. And, I often describe it as sort of tragic if I look back at this young girl who was kind of trying to find her way into the world, belonging and sharing her gifts. It was just really an uphill battle. And, I was just writing about this in terms of how I actually got into the spiritual world. My father was somewhat spiritual. He would go from church to church to church to church looking for inspiration, because I think maybe in the early 1900s, mid 1900s, that's what people did. They went to churches to find it. And sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's another experience that people need. And so I felt like he was definitely a seeker, and my mother too, that she often saw her spiritual connection in spirits in terms of alcohol and, various drugs. And they're both very highly educated, from the outside looking great. And I always felt like I didn't fit in. And I still feel that way, but I'm okay with it now.
Right. Well, you know what? It's really interesting because I think a lot of us who are teachers and healers on the planet felt that way coming up. It was like, I remember thinking, how did I get here? These are not my people. This is not where I belong. So, okay. So did meditation find you, or did you go seeking?
Gosh, I think I was seeking, but I didn't know what I was seeking. Maybe like you, I just knew there was something else. I was very successful as a young woman, although I had bicycled around the world. I had been married and divorced. I had been in the military. I bought my first house when I was in my 20s. I was successful at real estate, and I'm looking around. I had the car phone, which doesn't sound like a big deal then, but it was probably about the size of, a computer. It was huge. But I had everything that, money could buy, and I had a good relationship, and I was still wondering, what is this all about? Why am I even here? This doesn't seem like, the prize, this stuff, and I had, as I said, bicycled. I was aiming to go all the way around the world, but I only made it to Thailand. And, but I had been on a 9-month journey, kind of seeking the secrets, all these kind of mystical places in Turkey and Greece and up in the Hunza Valley, up in Pakistan, and up to the Golden Triangle in Thailand, and of course, many places in Europe. And I just was going, I hear about all these mystical places. I hear about mystics. And so maybe if I just go spend a little time in some of these places, it'll rub off on me. And it didn't. But what did happen was every day I had to meet my own mind as I was bicycling up the foothills of the Himalayas, or bicycling. What Bob Seger's song "Against the Wind" seemed to be one of my theme songs, bicycling against the wind along the Black Sea coast or something. And the man I was traveling with was a Zen Buddhist. Mm-hmm. And so if those of you who don't know much about that, Buddhism traveled around Asia and made its way to Japan. And Zen Buddhism is sort of the flavor of Buddhism as it was in Japan. And he taught me a chant that kept my mind occupied as I was, literally spending all day going up a hill, all day. Sometimes it would be 2 days. And so I would, often want to throw my bike over the hill or give up. So he taught me this chant, and I actually wrote it, and I put it on my little front pack of my bike and chanted the whole time. Unbeknownst to me, it was a chant to Kuan Yin, or in Japanese is Avalokiteshvara, and or Kanzeon. And so I would sing this chant every day. And Kanzeon, or Kuan Yin, is the goddess of compassion, is kind of the protector of the innocent. And I didn't realize, but every single day I was chanting to her. Years later, I discovered that's what my chant was. But I also noticed how it kept my mind in the present moment, rather than focusing too far at the top of the hill or wishing things were different. I just had to be where I was and chant. So that was my first kind of foray into meditation, was really into that chanting experience.
Well, first of all, I just want to say bravo for anybody who can ride a bike up the Himalayas. I mean, you must have had an extraordinarily strong body, and second of all, intention was powerful. Yeah. I just want to talk. A lot of people say, I really want to meditate, but every time I sit down, my mind goes out to the laundry or whatever. Yeah. So, can we just talk about why is meditation important?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the 3 ingredients to meditation, and then I'll tell you why it's important. Okay. So I've never met anyone who can't meditate. Okay. So everybody's got what it takes. The first ingredient for any meditation practice is your willingness to sit down and do it. Often that's accompanied with an intention. Or sankalpa, some people might know that word from Yoga Nidra, but everybody sits down to meditate for some reason or another, whether they want to get healthy, have a better relationship, feel physically stronger, whatever it may be, get more mentally clear, sleep better, they're facing a diagnosis and they want to deal with it better. So everybody's got a reason they sit there. The second ingredient is your gentle, non-judgmental attention. Mm-hmm. What you're listening, hopefully, to me with, and your audience is listening to both of us with. And so it doesn't take superhuman powers of concentration at all. And yes, you will have thoughts. And the third ingredient is what you put your attention on. And many people have heard of breath awareness, mm-hmm. or body awareness, or even mantra practice. So the reason people meditate is to settle the nervous system, to train the brain to be able to focus on one thing at a time when you want to, and to be more peaceful and relaxed, right? So that you can get to know yourself instead of always rushing around feeling like, as many people do, they're already behind when they get up in the morning. I'm already late. I already am stressed out. I already have too much to do on my to-do list. So the real reason to meditate is not only to handle all of our human needs, but more so to connect with that which is looking through your eyes. That presence that's always here, that's been with you since you were born as a little girl growing up. There's this presence that, is filtered through your biology, your emotional content, your mental activities, the environment. But there is this pure, joyful, peaceful presence that exists even when you're depressed, that exists even when you're sick, that exists even when you're in pain, that exists even when you're muddled, your thinking is muddled or you're sad. This presence is always here. It's pure, it's peaceful, its nature is joy. And so for me, the reason I think people ideally would meditate is to become very connected to the source of that attention that's looking through your eyes, that presence. And it's hard to explain because it's so esoteric and so subtle.
Yes, but it's the essence of who we are. It's the energy of which we're made, really. And it's very interesting because I really want to talk. I mean, I've been meditating for 40 years, and I want to talk about the different modalities of meditation because, I started out meditating one way and it's evolved over time. So, I just want to talk about the fact that it doesn't always look the same and it's not always the same entry point.
That's right. Well, the entry point quite often is pain. Somebody's been brought to their knees and they need some help. And they're like, what do I do? Conventional medicine isn't working, or my psychologist can't help me, or whatever it may be. So the way we start meditation quite often is pretty elementary. You have to learn that thoughts are okay. Your job is to keep coming back to the focus. You learn that you have to be kind to yourself with your eyes closed. You can't spend that time beating yourself up. You learn that every meditation is good for you, no matter what the experience is. And you learn that trying to have a certain experience is actually counterproductive, that meditation is natural and not to try and mood make, so to speak. And then lastly, to stick with the whole practice and not make it so arbitrary. If you're going to sit down to meditate, you've got 15 minutes to do it. You don't stop at 10 because it's not going the way you want it to go. You finish it up. Whether you like it or not. And it's a little bit like, going to the gym. You just do it. You show up and you do it. Now, you're right. Meditation evolves over time. Sometimes, I can tell you my experience, and yours is probably somewhat similar. As you sit down and get to know your own mind and get to know the nature of what happens when in that 15 or 20 minutes, it no longer becomes such a big deal. You simply just keep coming back. The thoughts that interrupt don't seem to have as much weight. They're not as charming. You just keep coming back. And what you're doing each time is you're training your attention to be in the present moment, to be focused on one thing at a time, and you're getting to know what's going on in your interior. So this training ultimately allows for you to bring the same quality of attention to any practice. And I describe those three ingredients to meditation: your willingness, your gentle attention, and a focus for your attention. But there are so many variations on the focus. You could, like I say, use sound as a focus, whether you're listening to a sound or making a sound or thinking a sound. You can use emotions or feelings as a focus, whether it's loving kindness or gratitude or any form of prayer, or even just the feeling or sensation of the breath moving in and out of the body, or body sensations themselves. And you can even focus on movements, like the movement of your heartbeat, or if you're doing a walking meditation. And then there's the visualizations using that sense of sight, whether you're gazing at a beautiful sunset or a tree or a flower or somebody's eyes, or you're turning your attention inward and playing with the visuals in your mind's eye. So quite often, different strokes for different folks, really, because if I've spent many years training meditation teachers, and if I go around the room and say, okay, what's your go-to meditation? Is there one right way? and you will hear that just as many people in the room, probably they almost all have a different practice.
Yes.
I mean, they almost all do.
Yeah. And I just want to go back to something you just said, do it anew. I remember when I first started meditating and they said, okay, meditate for 5 minutes. And like every minute I was looking at my watch, going, are we at the 5 minutes yet? And what I learned was that the longer you do it beyond your mind, the easier it gets and the more you surrender, because you're not trying to shut down your mind. You're really inviting the mind into the practice. So I love that. I want to talk to you about the power of meditating in community.
Oh, yes. That's my favorite thing. Before we go into that, I just want to share there's an alternate to those 3 ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
There's the meditation that many of us, like you, when someone says, close your eyes and meditate, you don't exactly know what to do next other than keep track of the time. There are people who don't have any particular focus at all in their meditation, that they just start receiving whatever is here without any attachment, whether it's the wind in the trees or the phone ringing in the other room, footsteps or the sound of the breath, sensations in the body. It's just as if they're in the middle of a stream and receiving everything that's coming. So I just wanted to make sure I covered that, because there is that's called open awareness practice. So back to community. Well, for me, I actually just started a membership site, and I call it the 3 jewels. And let me tell you why. In the Zen Buddhist tradition, there are what are called the 3 jewels. So there is you and your personal practice. That is one of the jewels. They call that the Buddha, but getting in touch with that which is looking through your eyes. The second jewel is wisdom, wherever you get it, whether it's from a podcast or the Bible or some sacred poetry or your grandmother or your dog. Where do you get your wisdom that keeps you attuned to your spiritual path? Doesn't matter, but that is a key jewel. So your practice, wisdom, and the third, and I would say almost the most important, is your community of practice. And during this whole lockdown over the last couple of years, I've never worked harder, and everybody now is a Zoom expert. So I have been leading meditations that started 3 times a day. Actually, it was 5 times a day initially. In the lockdown in 2020 in March, all of a sudden we were doing 5 meditations a day. And I was meeting people from all over the world who were scared out of their minds. They were in lockdowns. They were in apartments in New York all by themselves, no food, no help. They were trapped in somebody's house. They couldn't get back home because they weren't allowed to come back to the United States. People all over were tuning in and meditating. And yes, there were issues that we addressed, but more importantly, when we connect to that part of us that is well, even though we're depressed or scared or fearing for our lives, there is a part of us that is okay anyway. And meditation helps you to yoke your attention to that part of you. And so every day it was like, oh, thank God, I'm okay right now. In this moment, I'm okay right now. Because when we get scared, we're often focused in the future and we're wondering what's going to happen, or will it ever be the same as the way it was? And so coming right here and recognizing everything is okay in this moment. And it really and truly is,
Absolutely.
No matter what moment we're in.
Exactly. So how do people find you, your meditation community? How do they get to you?
Well, I have a lot of meditations. I do them every Wednesday. So you can, and I record them and put them online on YouTube. So you can just search my name, Sarah McLean, on YouTube, SarahMclean. You can also go to my website, which is McLeanmeditation.com, where I offer coaching and private sessions and free online sessions and a membership. And we'll see what happens next. I know, there's a change in the air. I don't know what it's going to look like. I bet you can feel it too. I have a lot of hope that everybody gets to step into their own sense of peace, and they're not outsourcing their happiness anymore. They're taking better care of each other and themselves. I have a really great faith that even though we've been through hell, we'll be like rising like a phoenix. I do believe that. It may take a little while, but
Me too. I agree. And it was really interesting because I just interviewed an astrologer recently who said that we have now stepped into a field where women are stepping into their power in extraordinary ways. And so, I think from all kinds of different directions, there's hope that we get to flourish.
Yeah.
So I asked women, our guests, the same last question. The show is called Women Awakening. And so what do you think is the most important, the one thing that's important about women awakening?
I think I just said it. I do believe that we can resource our own personal power. We can resource our own energy. We can resource our faith. We do not have to outsource it to another entity. We have everything that we need. I mean, there's nothing wrong with community. As I said, it's one of the most important things, and having great faith in the benevolence of whoever's orchestrating this scenario. But I do believe that if we look inside, we'll find what we need. We'll find the answers to the questions. Instead of saying, what do you think I should do? Just ask you, what do I think I should do? What would be the best and most nourishing choice for me in this moment? And always, always make space for your future.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, thank you so much. I love your wisdom. I love your heart. I love your energy. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. I loved being here with you.
So ladies, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell you every week. Listen, you are original and powerful and dynamic, unrepeatable. Therefore, you're on the planet at this time for a reason. And it's powerful and it's dynamic and it's mighty. Open your heart, open your mind, do whatever is necessary to tap into that place that Sarah just spoke about, the inner you, the powerful, inner, magnificent you. The world is waiting. I will see you next time, and I love you.